Hell no.
Need some comic relief here, man.
Turn that bass up.
Shout out Young Swish.
Get up, let me begin. This is 𝗬𝗎𝗪. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is 𝗬𝗎𝗪. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Joined as always by my co-hosts, we've got Evan McPhillips, Danielle Almeida, Logan Fulmer, and our guy, the controversial king himself, Tim Andrews. Listen, a lot of stuff to get into, a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we do, make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live, when we upload content from the TWSN studios. This is our final State of the Jungle of the year. Next week will be our final State of the Jungle before we go on a little bit of a break, hiatus, or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of stuff that we got to talk about. Namely, we're going to be talking about the Bengals' New Year's resolution, how we can get the Bengals back to the playoff hunt. As you guys know, as every offseason, we'll have you guys covered on the channel for any news that happens, any free agent signings, any trades. You know, Bengals don't do those, guys, right? Who we can? Bengals don't do too many trades, but we'll also have you guys covered for the entire draft coverage. Obviously, we'll have boots on the ground in Indy as we are each and every single year. We hope to have our State of the Jungle show like we do live from the convention center. We'll have you covered on every front when it comes to draft process. And you know what? I can't wait to start back up, boys. War Room. I can't wait to start that back up as we start to debate and discuss all the various prospects that make sense for your Cincinnati Bengals. But before we get into that, the Bengals still have one more game on the schedule, and that's a game against their division rival, the Cleveland Browns. I am not looking forward to this game. You know, the Bengals really have nothing to play for besides, I guess, ending the season on a high note and starting the season fast. You know why I don't care too much about that, guys? Because the Bengals ended the season last year on a high note, right?
Got to carry that momentum over
Look how well
8-9
it did
months.
Yeah. And you know, I know we haven't had a morning show because the morning shows are pretty much wrapped up at this point. But we haven't had a morning show too much to kind of dive into all this. What did we make of the game, right, that we saw just this past week where the Cincinnati Bengals won? The Bengals won a game, and you know, everybody was super excited to see us beat the Arizona Cardinals in a dominating fashion. Second week in a row, we were able to pull Joe Burrow and Joe Flacco entered the game for us. What did you guys take away from the game? Shamar Stewart got his first sack. That was nice to see. Logan, let's start with you.
Man, I mean, in general, it's always good to win games. I mean, I'm never going to complain about that. I just hope we're not getting too overconfident and continuing to beat bad teams down the stretch of the season, much like, you know, we had success doing last year. That's the only worry for me. But at the end of the day, scoring points is fun. Watching the offense play like that is fun. Watching the defense play better each week is fun. But it's just, again, it's not something I'm going to take too much stock in just because the level of competition that you're playing. There was times I'm watching the Arizona Cardinals play football, and I wasn't even convinced they're really trying to win the football game. I mean, Trey McBride did nothing for a half of football until they force-fed him down the back half of the game just so he could break this record in 17 or 16 games instead of 17. But regardless, again, I love seeing the offense click. I love seeing the defense make strides. That's all it is at this point. You can't take anything definite down these worthless games at this point. But I'm always going to appreciate the opportunity to watch Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase do their thing. And, you know, thankfully they did just that this week.
Yeah, I think when you look at this game, it was fun to watch. And that's the part that should piss everybody off, because this is a team that showed they're not a terrible team, right? They're continuously dominating the bad teams, but they're not a great team right now. And that's the part where looking into, you know, our crystal ball with what we're going to be discussing this offseason, it's just going to be who are the key pieces that are showing up. And this year has been a bright spot for a couple guys that I personally wasn't expecting. I think even the Bengals weren't expecting, whether it be DJ Turner showing up, or even now the conversation has shifted to Dax Hill. This is a guy who nobody was really discussing as a clear-cut guy, and he's a guy. So I look at those two players as focal points, and they give me confidence, and they should give the Bengals confidence. So that's what, you know, I really was watching for. I liked watching the young guys on the defensive line. I like watching even McKinley Jackson, just seeing what you have in these guys. Same thing watching Shamar Stewart and Myles Murphy. So this is a similar spot that the Bengals were in last year, but the one positive I will say on the defensive side is I feel a lot more confident about these young guys because heading into this year, there was still a lot of questions of, all right, how does the defense look even with Trey? And this year, heading into 2026, you're going to pencil in Dax Hill as CB2. You're going to pencil in DJ Turner as CB1. You're going to pencil in Jordan Battle as a starter, and this is something you can feel confident about. So it was fun watching Bengals football, and it sucks knowing that they're not playing for anything, but they got one more game, and we'll see how that one goes.
I just wanted to see a breath of fresh air, sign of life, honestly. Where we're at with the season right now is just looking at depth, looking at what pieces fit, where can you get the most production out of the places that have hurt the most. Where I'm at right now with the end of the season is like you got to see Myles Murphy show glimpses. You got to see Shamar Stewart do some type of, makeshift pass rush move to get to the quarterback. At the end of the day, that's all I cared about, was showing that you have grown at least a little bit within, the realm of possibility for the end of the season for what we have. I've loved the last 2 weeks of just seeing points be put up on the board. It's the holiday season, so the time for giving, and they gave us some wins. So I mean, you could take that into next season. The biggest thing is to move forward.
Let's get Evan's thoughts real quick.
Yeah. You're really just trying to see that improvement, right? The big part of that is just better than what it was, because right now contributions this year aren't necessarily going to matter. The conversations about Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight and Shamar Stewart needing to be able to contribute right away and help this team achieve, now it's coming back to development. Now it's about them getting reps, getting that experience, and that's really important. And I think you're starting to see that with even Isaiah Foskey getting on the field a little bit as they kind of rotate and figure out what part of this defensive line rotation, this linebacker and DB rotation, what's that going to look like going forward? Who gets extended? I think those are the biggest questions right now. So you want to see continuous good things from guys like DJ Turner, Dax Hill, if they're on the field. You want to see from other guys, especially in that defensive line room, can some of these young guys take a step forward? It's great that Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight didn't look lost this game. That was really good. Myles Murphy gets another couple pressures. These were all good things. Overall, since week 13, Bengals defense is 11th in EPA per play. The offense is 9th in EPA per play. So encouraging things on the back end. It sucks that you had to deal with so much adversity, but unfortunately, that's the nature of the NFL. Every team deals with that in some way, shape, or form. So it's nice to see it coming together, but what that means for next year when some of these players end up leaving and then you have new guys coming in, that doesn't really buy you a lot of goodwill. And we've seen that, as like Malik pointed out earlier, they've finished strong a couple times in the last few seasons, but still always seem to sputter out of the gate when they start. So it's encouraging in the sense of like, hey, you can maybe count on some of these younger guys a little bit sooner than you expected. Maybe you don't feel as badly that you need to get a starter level linebacker free agent edition. Maybe you can just go for a guy who is a veteran looking for a chance to compete for a spot, and that frees up some money elsewhere for maybe a more expensive safety, a more expensive edge player, something like that. That's definitely what I will be mostly looking forward in the next coming weeks.
And also, like, to add to that, I think one thing that we could take away from these last couple of weeks is our offense is exactly who we thought they were. They have put up the points, maybe not at the times during the year that we've hoped that they would show up when the lights were brightest. But at the end of the day, these guys are able to play football at a high click. And, you could take that into the next season and do what you will with that information. That's not really was the issue at the beginning of the year. I think something that we could take away from these last couple of games is the fact that our edge rushing isn't as terrible as I thought it was. And Myles Murphy turning a corner, I can't emphasize enough how much he's improved. But these are pivotal games. These were pivotal games for backup players, for guys who are not just, auditioning to be a Cincinnati Bengal next year, but for the other, 31 teams in the league. Putting your tape out there, putting your best foot forward. Guys still have something to prove. I mean, when you lace them up on Sundays, on Mondays, on Thursdays, you're looking at just being a competitor. And I thought that we, were competitors. Now, I didn't like the 21 points given up in Miami. I mean, I felt like you should have been whooping their ass from the get-go, but that's not the point. The point is that we got a dub and that there's a positive vibe in the building amongst the players. Now let's go ahead and let me say that again, amongst the players. Zach, I still want your ass gone. I ain't forgot about you. Just because time of year giving, I want you to get a pink slip. I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, that's what I'll take from the Bengals this year. The last couple games.
I think that there are some folks that are wondering, have we given up the fight a little bit? So let me just reiterate this. I will always try and push for the organization to pursue excellence. I will always push for the organization to do better and push for a championship, because that should be the ultimate goal. That's why we do the show. I take no I take no enjoyment out of coming on the show being negative, talking about the mishaps of the team. Guys, listen. The folks that are super Bengals fans and you're happy off of these victories, and obviously you're happy to be seeing Joe Burrow play, that is fine. I understand that. I think the entire crew, the entire panel understands why you are excited. But those same folks, please do not fault people who are unsatisfied. Do not fault people who are unhappy. Do not fault people who want change. Don't fault people that don't want to support. You support the way that you want to support. You voice your frustrations the way that you choose to voice your frustration. That doesn't make you any more or any less of a fan or supporter of this team. Do not let anyone tell you anything otherwise, because that would be ignorant. If there are people that are putting their hard-earned dollars, right, towards this team, and you're allowed to have an opinion, the ones that are saying shut up and, well, you're allowing the national media to do, that is ridiculous, right? That is ridiculous. People are allowed to be upset. People are allowed to not want complacency. People are also not allowed to be so biased, right, that it stops them from being able to be critical and talk about the areas in which they need improvement. Doesn't matter how close you are with players. I'm close with players. I'm critical of players too. One thing that Orlando Brown Jr. said to me earlier this summer is, you're very hard on us, but I appreciate the fact that you're always real. And that's always something you're going to get with me. If me having a microphone in front of my face and me speaking so truthful and so honest about the mishaps, the missteps of the organization, or maybe why the team hasn't pushed too far, if that maybe stops people from wanting to sit down with me, then so fucking be it. That is a bullet that I'm willing to withstand, because guess what? At the end of the day, when Joe Burrow was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals and Jamar Chase was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, and they decided, hey, you know what? We're going to change the culture here in Cincinnati. We're going to push for a Super Bowl, and they did exactly that. The standard went up. The standard went up when they went to the Super Bowl. The standard went up when they followed up by going to the AFC Championship. How dare you be so complacent and so okay with the standard being mediocre, because that is what you've been born into, that you're like, you know what? I don't want change, or no, I'm sorry. I don't want anybody to ridicule the team. What? Do you think that maybe someday, do you think that the Bengals just woke up one day and said, you know what? We're going to go out there and we're going to do a mass free agent signing. Is that what you think happened? Do you think the Bengals just woke up one day and said, you know what, we're going to have a kick-ass fan experience? Do you think that's just what happened? Do you think the Bengals just woke up one day and said, hey, we're going to have a Bengals Ring of Honor? No, it took people raising their voices. It took people speaking out. It didn't take people cowering. It didn't take people being quiet. It didn't take people, saying, we got to go with the status quo because we don't want the national media to say anything wrong about our team. That doesn't make you a warrior. That makes you a coward. So at the end of the day, when we do the show and we speak about the missteps of the organization and why they have now missed the playoffs for a third consecutive year, that is not the standard. The Blackburn family, they put out a notice saying the standard is to rule the jungle, rule the North, rule the AFC, and win the Super Bowl. That is the standard that they set. 3 years later, we're now talking about, you know, it's fine. They got to rebuild the roster. They got to do this. They got to do that. No, that's bullshit. You know, I sat on the show a few years ago and I talked about how putting together a Super Bowl roster is tough to do. But you know what's even tougher? Keeping it together. You know what's even tougher? Building off of it. You know what's even tougher? Picking the right pieces to extend and not to extend. We can all agree. Listen, in order for us to go forward, we have to address the past, right? I'm a big person that likes to look in the mirror. I believe everybody, every single one of us should look in the mirror because I think that's the only way that we actually get personal growth, right? Not looking at what this team is doing and talking about the Ravens and talking about the Steelers and talking about the Chiefs and talking about this. No, you have to look inward if you really want to achieve success. Cut your own grass before you cut somebody else's. That's a model that I've always lived by. So the fact of the matter is you have to look inward. You have to talk about the mistakes that were made, right? This is a New Year's resolution episode, right? So how do you know what to look forward to? What your resolution is going to be if you're not addressing the past, right?
You didn't reflect. Yeah.
I'll tell you where is a good place for the Bengals to start. How about we go to the table this offseason with a guy like Dax Hill or a guy like DJ Turner, and we say, hey, we're going to give you an extension now because we don't want it to get into the final year of your deal, and then we're going to penny pinch you because we don't want to pay you everything that you're worth. How about we get back to the old Bengals of attacking contracts early? Anybody disagree with that? I think that would help the team a long way. Listen, I've been going a long time. Daniel, what is one of your New Year's resolutions for the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on one aspect of it in terms of signing, but it's just attack free agency, man. I'm just tired of this. And it goes beyond what the Bengals have typically done. I think that this offseason, they're going to have that chance. The Trey Hendrickson conversation is going to come up. And there's a very real possibility that that dude is not on the Bengals. So if he's not on the Bengals, you've got to do something. And you can look at the numbers, and the numbers will say the Cincinnati Bengals are top 10 in cap. They've got the money to do it. This is the year to do it. You don't have to sign Ja'Marr Chase. You don't have to sign T. Higgins. You don't have to sign these guys. Like you said, maybe go out and give Dax an extension, give DJ Turner an extension. But for me, it's actually go out and attack free agency, because this year, guys like TJ Slayton were good. I think he's a solid pickup. But this is not the year for you to rest on your laurels. And that's probably my biggest New Year's resolution, because at the end of the day, if no change is going to be made in the coaching staff, whereas other teams like the Buffalo Bills reportedly are, potentially interested in maybe moving off of Sean McDermott, if you're not going to change a part of the coaching staff, something has to change. And we can't sit up here and say they need to develop better, because that is true. They have to. But that is not done in the offseason. That is done in the season. So the only realistic change I think that they can make is to attack free agency with an actual plan, especially if Trey Hendrickson is not on this roster. You've got to have a plan in place, because you cannot head into a season expecting what the Bengals did this season with, all right, we're going to roll out Myles Murphy and Joseph Ossai. And next year it can't be, we're going to roll out Myles Murphy and Shamar Stewart and that's it. BJ Hill as our starting defense tackle. That is not a successful plan. So a realistic resolution, if it's no change to the coaching staff, it's to actually attack free agency and put your money where your mouth is, because I don't feel like the Bengals have done that. So that's definitely my biggest resolution is free agency.
I think for me, my biggest resolution is, kind of going off of what Daniel said, is just being open to change, not just being open to it, but just embracing it. We don't need to, we're clearly probably not going to see too many changes in the coaching staff unless they decide to leave or take jobs.
Can I ask you a question though?
Why?
Always. Why?
I just not the
No,
vibe.
not you.
Yeah.
But why is that such a foregone conclusion? I just think that is such a mediocre mediocrity. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you know what? It's bad when everyone else sees that the girl you're dating is cheating on you. You just don't believe it, so you just.
Why do you always use that analogy?
I don't know, man. I got some trauma, but look, at the end of the day, the shit hits. The shit hits, because are we being for real? Yeah, we see the shit happen in front of us, and people are telling us, "Yo, that's not what you want. It looks bad, and it is bad." And you're like, "Nah, look, just give it some time, and I'll figure it out." We done did this for 2 seasons, 3 seasons, and the losing been happening. I mean, outside of our run from 2020 to 2022, 3, I guess you sit there and be like, oh, we put some good ball together. I mean, like, you do the same shit, get the same results. You don't take care of your business, it'll take care of you. And that's exactly where we're at. You get comfortable with being middle of the pack and still hanging on to the trophies that you had from before. That shit ain't gonna mean shit when it gets dust on it, because people who are winning now are gonna be like, well, you ain't did shit for me lately.
Look at people when coming to Pittsburgh. People don't give a damn what Pittsburgh did. Super Bowl, Sixburg. We don't care about
that 9-8 shit ain't flying in Pittsburgh. And now they're at the point where they're like, you know what? If we don't do something this year, I still hear riffs in the air about Mike Tomlin possibly being on the hot seat if they don't get past the first round. And that's a person who hasn't had a losing season. So why the fuck Zach Taylor got a job? I don't know. But since we can't do anything about it, and obviously they're blind, I think the next best thing to do is to sit here, and if you got this type of cap space for money, go ahead and just devote it to what we really need and what we're all been asking for, which is the damn defense.
What are we talking about? Close to 100 million?
Yeah,
right, upwards to 100 million.
Yeah, without Trey.
Without Trey?
Yeah, without
right.
Trey.
Okay, let me just ask some questions, fire off some questions. And I want to start with Evan over there. And you can answer this as long-winded or as short-winded as any of you want to, except for time. I'm kidding. But
fuck you.
Are you extending an offer to Trey Hendrickson at all to try to get him to stay after he tests free agency?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, it's just
no.
not happening.
Yeah,
it's just not happening.
Okay.
I won't even entertain the idea because, again, I will repeat, if they were not going to put Trey in there at $28-30 million a year last year, then coming off an injury, another year later, they're not going to franchise tag him for a guaranteed 28-29 million.
No. I'm not saying franchise tag.
I know.
I'm saying
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
You said offer
doesn't
him a
matter.
contract.
I'm telling you, it doesn't matter because he was not coming off it. He was not looking bad. He was not coming off injury. He was not a year long, and they still couldn't get to more than 20 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
So there's no realm where they have not soured this relationship where they're going to offer him the money he's owed, because that next contract now, if they were barely fighting to give him 20 million off what, a 17 sack season?
Yeah.
What do you think they're offering now? 15 million guaranteed, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we'll give you, 2 years, 1 year, $15 million guaranteed.
And the sad part about it is they probably walk away from this feeling vindicated because they're like, you got injured. We bet on ourselves and we were right. You couldn't stay healthy. We saved money. Imagine if
that's
we
the
signed
thing
that guy
is
to
that's
2
bad
years.
process that ends up in a good result, right? But the problem
mean,
is you have bad process that ends up in a win, and then you go, wow, that was smart to do. So now we're gonna dig in deeper, and we're never gonna pay our guys, even though when they deserve it or they prove to deserve it. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like it keeps reafirming bad behavior.
I agree.
You lucky didn't shoot yourself as far as money, because you sat there, we'll wipe the sweat. All right, cool. We still got squeezed and bent over for 18 mil. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still kind of fucked yourself when you didn't sit there and deal him for draft capital. You shot yourself in the foot as far as draft capital.
Well,
you could have got I don't know what we all would think up here. I think we were all different for what Trey would be worth at that time, in April of what he might be worth. But now it's at the point where you kind of do what the Giants did with Saquon in a sense and be like, well, you know what? Going back out there and see what you can try to get now. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like it, we'll toss you a number. And if you like it, cool. If not, you're just going to have to take whatever you can get out there. Now, the only thing with that is that we're at the point where will Trey be taking up space for somebody who could be using those valuable reps? We're going younger. I mean, there's at a point where it's not necessarily a rebuild for us, but it'll be a revamp, because when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, your window is never really closed.
Does anyone here feel though that you've seen enough from Ossai, that you've seen enough from Myles Murphy, Shamar Stewart to be like, hey, we shouldn't add a rusher. We should just go young. Because I think
absolutely not.
No, hell no. I ain't say that.
I think hear me out. No, I know you hadn't, but I think that there is a message being lost on people pushing agendas on social media that are like, hey, look, Myles Murphy has arrived. Shamar Stewart has arrived. Joseph Ossai.
I'm glad we saw 3 good games from Myles Murphy.
Like,
everybody calm the fuck down if that's the
Myles Murphy's cool, and he's a good.
I think he's gonna be a very good player.
Very good Sam Hubbard level. Like, hey, maybe you got a little more pass rush juice than that, but in the way of like, you're a good. If that's your edge too, you're in great shape.
I think if he played like he did these last 3 games, I think he's good for a good 7 sacks next season. But that's not that's not my starting defensive end. Where it's like, all right,
he's
gonna have
starter.
to get.
He's
No, I'm
starter.
saying he's a starter, but he's not the person where I'm gonna lock in like on Myles Garrett. Like I gotta chip him. He's not as much of a problem.
No.
If you get somebody else, I think Myles Garrett. I mean, not Myles Garrett. Goddamn, I keep thinking about you, buddy. I think Myles Murphy benefits from having somebody on the other side who's dominant. That's cool, but you still got a problem at linebacker as well.
I think they should be at a point where, especially if Trey's gone, and I don't know if they're going to do this because they don't like this prototype, but you should go out and get a pure pass rusher. That's where I would do, because I think that's the avenue that they're lacking. Even in these recent games, to be honest with you, Myles has looked good, but as a pure pass rusher in those sets, at times he's...
Can I present to you a problem though here, Daniel?
Let me hear.
They're like great offensive tackles. When you have a great pass rusher, they don't become free agents because they just get locked up, right? So unless you are going to trade for someone, and I know everyone's going to scream to the high heavens, trade for Max Crosby. I don't think the Bengals are interested in all that guaranteed money, but that's neither here nor there. Do you expect the Bengals, who have traded for what, 2 players with like 5th round picks in the last 20 something years, right? Like, are they going to go make a splash giant 3 first-round pick trade?
No, I would say
right. No. But again, those guys don't make it to free agency. So when you say you got to get that, hey, if Myles Murphy were happy with edge 2, where are you going to get edge 1? The only way you get that guy is if you trade him. If he randomly makes it to free agency, which they don't do because then people trade them like they did with Micah Parsons, where they say, hey, as soon as we know we're not going to sign you. Isn't that crazy? You can just take an edge that you have no intention of signing and you can trade them to someone else when you're not interested instead of getting something for nothing. I don't know if anyone can learn anything from that experience, but I mean, it's something to consider. But when we're talking about upcoming free agents, okay, let's pull up the edge.
And let me say this too. They're not getting an edge 1. You're
right,
not.
and that's my point though. Is when we say, "Hey, you got to do something
cheap to try to get an edge 1." We're gonna be for real.
The way the Bengals operate, and look, we're gonna get back to you actually because I cut you off, and I apologize.
Then I took over my bad.
We're rolling. Listen, the Bengals will convince themselves that the player that they sign is an edge 1.
Yeah,
and I'm willing to make a prediction right now. The Bengals will make Azeez Ojulari a priority.
I just want to go right now, just real quick. Top 10 options here.
Sure. You
You tell me when you hear this is going to be the
ED1
pass rusher, right? Trey Hendrickson.
Fuck no.
35-year-old Khalil Mack.
Nah.
32-year-old Hassan Reddick, who is undersized and not
his ass can't even show up to his job.
Right. Joey Bosa coming off another year of injury and with the Bills.
He looked confused half the time.
I'll give you maybe if you get the best of Bosa, that's your option. Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, Samson Ebukam, Danico Autry, Arden Key. Like that's where we're at with like the top 10 options. So that's why I say these guys just generally don't make it. So they either got to draft somebody, which they've done this twice in a row now, where they keep taking these toolsy guys, and we know they're not great at developing trench players. It's wide receivers, defensive backs, running backs. That's pretty much where their bread and butter has been.
Right.
Well, then I just don't know where this solution comes from, which was always what drove me so fucking crazy about the Trey Hendrickson idea, because you have the cap space, you have the need, you have the player. What are we debating?
Well, the one thing I keep landing on, guys, and really quickly is, you can almost sort of predict the path that they're going to take. I don't know if y'all can, but to me, Devontae Wyatt, if he gets free from the Packers, meaning if he hits free agency, if they don't re-sign him before, because of the Jerry Montgomery connection, he's a guy that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Logan, he has pass rush juice. He's had about 6, 5, 6, 7, I mean, like 6, 5 or sacks a year. He's a guy that's going to be able to push the pocket. It feels like they could go that route. It wouldn't shock me if, I know Evan's going to push back on this very hard. It would not shock me if they placed a phone call to DJ Reader to see if he would come back to Cincinnati for a cheaper deal. And I feel like defensive tackle is one of those weird positions. They don't care necessarily about your age, right? You think about the free agent they brought in last year. I just feel like their free agency is going to be very predictable. It's going to be guys that either know, or guys that they have that has ties to the coaching staff, at least on the defensive line front. Azeez Ojulari, I make the connection because he's a guy that they were interested in trading for before. He's still young. He didn't work out with the Eagles, right? Could he come in here, right? This is a guy they really liked and they really wanted just 2 seasons ago, just last year. Does that make sense? Devontae Wyatt, okay, does he if Devontae Wyatt comes in, who is he taking snaps away from? Is Devontae Wyatt an upgrade over BJ Hill? Yes. Is Devontae Wyatt an upgrade over Chris Jenkins Jr.? Yes. Right? You can't tell me that I think the biggest thing for me before we continue the conversation is I think you have too many guys that are like you have too many guys that are very like similar on the defensive line, if that makes sense. Like there's not a guy that's he needs to be gone, right? Like, what are you going to do with Joseph Ossai? Are you going to offer Joseph Ossai a contract extension?
Not for what he brings.
Well, this is the problem inherently, right? Is that not only I feel like obviously there's a lack of player development, but also like what did everybody say you needed at defensive tackle? 3-tech pass rusher, right? You need somebody with a pass rush, anybody. Edge, defensive tackle, whatever. And what did they do? They're like, hey, look at that. We solved the problem. TJ Slayton. And you're like, but he's a nose tackle. That's great. But like we sucked against the run. But like, we like the guys we have. Okay. Well, what about safety? Geno Stone was like really bad. Like, oh yeah, no, we agree. We don't think he gives us a good chance to win. So we asked him to take a pay cut and now he's going to be the guy. It's like, but you just said he wasn't good enough to, well, yeah, now he's making $2 million. Now he's good enough to win for us. Like, okay, what about linebackers? Surely we took 2 rookies and then we signed Oren Burks and what happens. Like, I don't want that level of apathy in these free agency ads. Like, I want like a veteran player that you could actually feel confident can perform at a reasonable NFL player level to where you're not the league's worst defense in the first 10 weeks of a season ever. Like, that's you can't say this guy's bad and then you cut his pay by half and then you go, no, actually he gives us the best chance to win.
Right.
Like, the fuck are you talking about? So like, again, it comes back to you keep adding all of these things that don't solve your problem, whether that's a linebacker that you can't depend on or that you don't feel comfortable starting right away. Oh, defensive tackle. Don't worry, guys. We added Mike Pennell like in the preseason. So like that solves the problem, right? Look, we're doing something. Like, come on.
You keep filling voids. You keep filling voids, honestly. Like when we
not even effectively. You keep getting the wrong archetypes.
There's no pizzazz. There's no pizzazz
with Joseph Ossai. Okay, you got Miles Murphy. You're getting Shamar Stewart. Or bringing Joseph Ossai back. And it's like, but that's not a proven pass rusher either.
No, really.
So like, again, we keep saying we're fixing all these problems, but like, okay, you've got 8 different versions of Mike Gesicki or Drew Sample. Like, can you give me one guy who can do a little bit of both? Like, that's again, it's just I when it was like, hey, we've got Mike Gesicki and we've got Tanner Hudson and he broke out. Okay, he's a good backup tight end. Now we're going to use a 5th round pick on Tanner McLaughlin.
You got a bunch of
Is he even going to make the roster? He's like, what? And then he's not even, and it's like, dude, what could you have done with that 5th round pick? What running backs can you get there? What safeties can you get there? What defensive linemen can you get there? Like, you can get a nose tackle in the 5th round. Like, that's what drives me crazy is the constant misuse of these resources to get players whose archetypes don't fit the needs of the team. And that's my overall, like, I guess New Year's resolution wish for the Bengals is to use their resources not to go make giant splashes in free agency, but just, hey, here's a like they did with Cheeto and DJ Reader and them. Hey, for $8 million, $10 million, we got all this space. Let's add 4 guys. Let's add 1 safety. Let's add 1 linebacker. Let's add an edge and a defensive tackle just for guys that we know can play at a competent fucking level for $8 million, $10 million a year. There we go. We've used 40 of our 60. We keep all this money. That's all great. But I want real fucking efforts, not, well, we spent $2 million on TJ Slayton and we spent $500K on the veteran minimum for Mike Pennell. And that's 2 bodies right there. So problem solved, right? Like, that's not an earnest attempt. That's like someone tells you I need reliable transportation and you bring them a bird scooter and you'd be like, no, it's got 2 wheels. It goes from A to B. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is great. And it's like, no, that's not an earnest fucking effort. Like, that's what drives me crazy. So that's my kind of hope is that they can approach the draft, approach free agency, actually addressing the team needs instead of just being like, we like the guys we have. Cause I'm fucking tired of hearing we like the guys we have.
Yeah, get that shit off your chest.
The thing I wanted to kind of touch on with the D line and what kind of you and Daniel were kind of going back and forth between is, we don't how to replace that level of Trey Hendrickson. I think the way the Bengals need to do it is just a holistic approach. As you need to just make the defense better as a whole. Do we want a better pass rusher? Yes, absolutely. Is there that many good ones in free agency? No, there's not the plethora of amazing ones like Evan was talking about. But guys like Odafe who's sat around 10 sacks these last 10 years. Does he come in and be your best pass rusher? Yes. Is he an upgrade on your team? Yes. Is he that's going to have to play every down? No, because we have Myles Murphy, we have Shamar Stewart. We have to go back to, and this is what something I thought Lou did a little bit better than Al has done so far, just playing players to their strengths a little bit. And, you know, and that goes back to the rookie linebackers. I love Barrett Carter coming out. He hasn't been great this year, but Barrett Carter's never been a guy that wore the green dot in college. He's never done that in his life. And now all of a sudden he's doing it in the NFL. Demetrius Knight's playing on the edge. And he clearly isn't very good at it. We got to continue to play people to their strengths. Get a pass rusher that's just what he's good at. He doesn't need to be good playing the run. We got Shamar Stewart for that. We got Myles Murphy for that. We got TJ Slayton for that. And that's the part where they need to go about building the defense that they haven't really done. Yes, it'd be nice just to have Trey Hendrickson or these premier edge players, but we're not getting that right now. That's not in free agency. But again, Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, Odafe Oweh, these guys that flirt with 8 to 10 sacks a year that are solid players would be massive additions for us. We're not going to go get the top of the line guys, but there's plenty of ways to upgrade this defense as a whole.
You have $100 million and you're not spending. You're not. Well, hear me out. No. That's bullshit excuse though. That listen, and that's part of why I'm saying what I'm saying about us again using this show as a mouthpiece, as well as other people do a great job with their shows as well. Like you can't just be like, hey, you listen.
Can I give you the reason why?
Wait, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
$100 million going into the offseason, right? Obviously, you have to pay DJ Turner, you have to pay Dax Hill, but that's money that wouldn't even take into account necessarily this year outside of the guarantee signing bonus, whatever the case would be. That you have money to go out there, and the moves that I'm talking about
right
aren't some of these groundbreaking moves. I'm talking about guys that would actually fix the pass rush situation. Devontae Wyatt is a guy that I look at for the Green Bay Packers, right? Let's have a real conversation. They offloaded Buddy, what's his name? The defense tackle they traded from the Packers. Kenny Clark, because of Devontae Wyatt. They said, hey, we feel that confident in him that we want to go all in on Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons obviously tears ACL the whole 9 yards, blah, 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 blah. But I look at Devontae Wyatt as a guy that would be exactly what you're looking for from a 3-tech. That's what he is, right? I don't know what the contract would look like, but I definitely think he hasn't hit his ceiling. And a lot like you took a chance with DJ Reader when DJ Reader was a free agent, right? You realize, okay, this is a guy that's ascending. He's a guy that it's going to break out here soon. I look at Devontae Wyatt and I say, this is a guy that's going to break out here soon. There's 2 major, maybe 3 levels of the defense where you know for a fact, hey, we need to fix this. I think the Bengals are going to go into the season saying our slot corner is going to be Jalen Davis. I think they're going to say Jalen Davis is going to be our slot corner. So I think they'll say, hey, we need to add another linebacker. We need to figure out adding another free safety, and we need to add pieces to the defensive line. In order to add pieces to the defensive line, some of these guys got to come off. Cam Sample has probably got to come off. Joseph Osai, is he coming back? David Mogetta is probably going to look to get him a contract. These are all things that I start to think about. These are all things that where my mind goes. But Evan, what were your thoughts? You say you were going to say something.
Yeah, no. When you just kind of were talking about like why can't you play in that top tier of free agency when you have the money? And I would argue that you want to get guys like Mike Gesicki, right? The idea is that your pro scouting network, your coaches in the office watching all these games, identifying players that could be good fits for your system, right? Guys who are misused that you can get more out of, right? Mike Gesicki was a great example. Hey, we're a passing offense. He's in an offense that relies on a lot of blocking tight ends. He's fallen out of favor. He's not being used right. This presents a great opportunity for value. DJ Reader, great rotational player, never been a starter. Trey Hendrickson, same way. We identify a guy who can get more value out of, that can play that starting role. Okay, that's a great use of your funds. When you start just paying the top tackle, the top defensive end, like we were talking about before, the positions like corner, wide receiver, quarterback, when you're the top guy, those guys don't usually make it to free agency because they are traded to a team to get some sort of recoup value, right? For a premium position. So the reason you don't end up paying those guys is because usually the top guy in free agency is not one of the top 3 or 5 guys at the position. He's maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, but because he's the only guy and the best guy at the position in free agency, he gets competed for by 3 different teams and ends up getting paid like the 3rd or 4th best. And so you end up overpaying just to secure a talented player, which is why you see a lot of these teams that are bad, just looking for any type of veteran that they can get, that it's like, hey, we need a good veteran that we can pay and we have the money and we have to reach the cap floor and we're going to be young and cheap anyways. Those are the people who overpay for that like top option.
But aren't they not currently in that situation?
Well, no, I just say you don't need to be in tier A because that wasn't tier A for them, for DJ Reader and everybody, right? That was, again, everybody was in that like 8 to 12 million a year range. That's playing the B tier. I agree. Like I look at guys like John Franklin Myers, like Draymond Jones. Yeah, absolutely. These are the guys that I talked about. And I've been talking about, I mean, we talked about Justin Houston for the last couple of years on free agency. He went to Baltimore. He got like 6 sacks in both years for him. That's the kind of guy that you can add that it's like you talked about. Get a guy who just, hey, pass rushing is what he does best. And we can rely on him. When it's 3rd and 16, he's going out there and he's ready, right? When we get them in that, where they can pin their ears back and really do that. Again, you don't have to pay 10, 15, 20 million to get these decent guys. Calais Campbell's making $5 million. John Franklin Myers right now is making 7.5. Like, these are all very quality players that would upgrade what they have right now. That can give them more unique skill sets, which also, while we're talking about that, slot receiver is low-key a very important need right now. A guy with a diverse skill set. Remember what sorry to just completely shift right there, but Tyler Boyd was Joe Burrow's go-to guy on 3rd and 4th down. Money downs, dude was like at an 80% conversion rate. It was incredible how often they were going to them. So they need that underneath option. They need that separator. They need that guy with a little bit of wiggle because they got a lot of tall trees on their team right now, right? But like they need something with a little more shifty. Like that's something that I would love to look at and add to like a free agent or like a later 3rd, 4th round pick. Like that's something you can look for. Like just those guys help. Deebo Samuel, tell me you put Deebo and play him big slot. He's not going to go out there and block his ass off and just run this short intermediate stuff and just underneath over the middle of the field for Joe Burrow. Like, not saying that has to be your answer, but like there are options out there where it's not hard to find a guy who's a shiftier slot. Like that is a skill set that is cheap that would give you something right now. And I don't want them to go, well, we like Mitch Tinsley and Yoshi Voss, and we feel like when Charlie Jones is healthy and complacency. That's the problem is they keep going, we like these guys instead of we want to add competition.
And can I add this? Because going back to the whole idea of us being not spending enough money, if you're not going to spend money on the players that can make an impact, a major impact, then you don't need to have questions about the people who are developing your players. And that's an issue that the Bengals have. And the question that's always brought up is, do we have enough people with enough eyes on enough players to make an impact for the team? When you sit there and you start talking about questions about, okay, well, why are our pass rushers not having a deep enough bag? That goes to coaching. Some of the guys who are pass rushers are getting more tips from guys at the end of games from other teams about ways to get around the defensive end or how to beat it inside, C gap pressure or to sit here and go about, doing a dribble between the legs basketball move before coming off the line. They're not learning it from position coaches. And you need guys who you're pushing yourself into a corner, honestly, where you're going to have to pay money for guys who are already kind of like proven products, because you don't have the confidence to develop guys the way that you want. If we had the coaches where you sit there and you say, you know what, each year there's a progression in the way that a guy comes about the game and in stats at the end of the year, when you look at it and say, you know what, this was better than last year, you're going to have to spend money, but you don't spend money. So now you're kind of in that complacency period with your life where it's like, well, we got Joe Burrow. We can do whatever we can. And that's just not working. It's not working. And it's okay to understand and say, you know what, I fucked up. I did. The guys that we got, it ain't really working out. So what do? You sit there and you say, you know what? I would like to go out there and get a John Franklin Myers, or to sit here and get a couple guys where, you know what, $8 million a piece, here you go. You're going to have to make a decision. Either spend that fucking cheese, or you're going to have to sit here and start to, you might want to put on a coaching hat yourself if you feel that confident and go out there and show them some shit. Our defense is the issue. It's no question.
Dude, I'd probably go just throw a bag at Denico Autry and just be like, hey, dude, I want you to hold Shamar Stewart's hand. You know, Prison Break when T-Bag is walking around with the pocket. He'd be like,
no,
Denico, hey, I pull your pocket out. Shamar, you hold his pocket the entire fucking practice.
Damn, I
want him in his ear talking about how you win as a 6'5", 280-pound DN.
Yeah, because if you're not gonna have a coach do it,
if you're not having that coach, because Shamar needs it. Shamar absolutely has all the athletic ability in the world, and
that brother ain't got no bag.
I would like someone maybe putting a little bit of talking that little earworm about how important technique is and how important hand fighting is and hand placement and all the finer things, because I know Shamar has a very high opinion of his athleticism. Everyone does. He is a very incredible athlete.
He's a specimen.
But that can only carry you so far. And I think Lane Johnson would laugh at all the different defensive ends that he's put in the ground because he had superior technique, even though he is quite an athlete himself for a big fella. Like, athleticism only gets you so far until everyone's a really good athlete. And then
that talent don't mean shit.
You can't basketball fake cross over somebody anymore. It's not, you're not going up against these guys in college. Like, it's not the same. You need to, like you said, have a bag. And so I think Myles Murphy's getting there a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't take 2 more years for Shamar to get there. We'll see.
And I was wrong. Devontae Wyatt, I don't think is a free agent. I think he has 1 more year left. Quay Walker is who I was referring to. The linebacker for the Packers. They both played at Georgia.
I don't know. We really like Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight. We really feel good about where they are right now.
I still think you need to bring in a vet linebacker to a degree. I still think you need to bring in a vet linebacker to a degree. Somebody that can come in here and push these guys.
Somebody said teabag.
Not unless you want to go with the old
somebody like Bobby Wagner or Demario Davis.
Levante David. You know, somebody for a year contract. Remember, what was the guy, the linebacker they once signed? Josh Bynes.
Yeah, fucking
back to the Ravens.
Josh Bynes.
Yeah, dude looked like he was walking around in cement out there.
Yeah. So I want to get to some more free agent. I mean, not even free agent, more New Year's resolutions that you like to see the Bengals work with. Daniel,
he might be.
You kind of been who?
has
Devontae Wyatt. So he is a free agent. Yeah. Okay.
So you were right, bro. Give yourself a pat on the back. Yeah.
No, screw you. Stay humble.
I thought they picked up his 5th-year option in 2025.
No, man. We already said you're correct. Wrong. I'm not saying it again.
Can be wrong too. You know.
Spotrac sucks. Use over the cap.
Did you just shot?
Yeah, no, I don't fuck with people who steal information from other websites and scrape other people's websites and claim their work as their own.
Well,
I think that's kind of shitty.
If I'm going by this, he is not a free agent. They picked up his 5th-year option.
Spotrac sucks. Use over the cap.
This is over the cap.
Well, there you go. He's over the cap.
Yeah, so they picked up his 5th-year option, so he'll be a free agent after.
See, they're using Spotrac. He got the right information. Yeah. Why go to Spotrac and then wait for them to scrape over the cap when you can just go to over the cap?
Hey, listen.
Oh, I see what you did there. That was smooth, my boy.
Cook. All right, so Dan, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think looking at it, and Tim made a great point on the development versus adding free agents. If these guys, and when you look at other teams, there's really 2 ways to win. You either develop young guys or you go out and you make acquisitions. If the young guys aren't developing, then you got to go out and make acquisitions. But the young guys they're hoping are developing. DJ Turner developed. Dax Hill is potentially developed. Myles Murphy's developed. And I see a lot of people in the chat, and we're excited to get to draft season. But you cannot approach free agency with the idea that we are going to get Caleb Downs to save us in the draft, or we are going to get Peter Woods to save us in the draft. You cannot approach
Peter Woods ain't doing it. I promise you that. Peter, I don't know how the rest of the panel feel about him, but I'm good on him.
You don't like Peter?
No.
It was dangerous going. Everybody's going to develop too, because as good as you feel about him right now, how good did everybody feel about Cam Taylor-Britt, right? Because
it's a development, because I think these guys will be way better.
Well, that's the thing. Is like we were like, hey, I feel good about Cam Taylor-Britt covering number 2s. Is he like a number 1 corner? And some people were like, oh, he's a Pro Bowler. He's ready. And then we obviously had those issues.
You ain't do shit with what you had.
And I'd say it even like Chris Jenkins right now, right? What's the conversation with him if they go out? Like, that's a 2nd-round pick you went out and spent. McKinley Jackson's a 3rd-round pick you went out and spent. And you're 2 years into their career, and are they confirmed to be in the backup role next year? No. So I think that when it comes to New Year's resolution, man, I just hope that the Bengals have a pathway, because when you look at last year's free agency, there was a couple good guys, right? If this Bengals team was in contention, you look at the Samaje Perine signing and say, okay, that was a value signing. You could look at the TJ Slayton signing, say that was a value signing. But you made Osai a priority. You made Cam Sample a priority. You made BJ Hill. What was he? $12 million a year?
11, Mike Gesicki.
So those are the tiers that you guys are talking about. You've got to hit on those. And I think that there's free agents available, and especially with the whole Trey Hendrickson conversation, if he's out the door, like I said, you got $75 million to play around with. And let's say they don't spend $20 million, because that's typically what they don't do. You got $55 million to spend on not pretty much any holes on offense. You probably, like you said, maybe slot, and maybe, Dalton Risner, but he's not making a lot. $50 million to spend on the defense. Go out and attack safety. Go out and attack defensive line, because you should not head into the draft at least in my opinion, with Geno Stone and Jordan Battle and your 2 rookie linebackers as your starters, and same thing with BJ Hill and TJ Slayton. So
you got like a $65 million disparity between the offense and the defense right now. You have money to play with to balance that out. Like you can go add 4 starters on defense, $10 million a year, and you're still paying your offense more. So like the cupboard's gotten bare at defense, so to speak, and it's time to replenish that cupboard a little bit, like both with the draft and with free agency.
Yeah, and maybe that's what they need. Maybe they just needed to be so, just so obvious in what they need to do, and maybe that's their recipe for success. I don't know, but yeah, it doesn't get more obvious.
I was going to say, I think Malik and everyone else can say
like,
we were sitting there saying tight end, three tech pass rusher, defensive end who can pass rush, safety, and I don't know how much more obvious it needs to get. We can all write it on bats and go smack people over the head around the stadium with it and see if that gets.
That's what it takes. Come down.
Is it on my resolution? Is it me?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Time to shine. Okay. I was gonna go with that lame ass route, like going to go knock on Brian Flores' door, having a pie for him or some shit like that. But I really fuck out of it. We're not gonna do that. So let's go ahead another way. How about Zac Taylor giving up play calling duties? I'm gonna be honest.
But why?
Because that shit been stale.
People want to hear why, right? Because people there are those who grandstand and they say, hey, we want to hear your thoughts as to why you're saying that. So tell us why.
I think we've all at some point during this year and like the last 2 years have sat here and said how predictable our play calling is. Between Jamar Chase catching a bubble screen, between a off tackle run by
second and
Chase
long
Brown,
run, under center handoff,
and then taking a shot to T on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. Like that shit. There's no creativity with the offense, and I feel like Dan Pitcher and honestly Brian Callahan even too, we're sitting in the wings waiting on their opportunity to sit here and be creative with putting their own spin on the offense. There's another level to you just get a feeling about some motherfuckers. Like Joe Burrow got another light to him, bro. Like that 60 touchdowns he threw in college, that 60 touchdown season was immaculate. And then to sit here and be like, well, we're getting 35 out of him a year, when he's healthy. But Joe Burrow, and honestly, again, going back to what you said, Ev, with the wide receiver 3 being in question, if you get somebody to sit here and give you half of what Tyler Boyd gave you, which was 11 touchdowns a year, if I'm correct, 1,000 yards, I'll take 6. I'll take 700 yards and
you have
7
a tight
touchdowns
end you didn't have before.
Yes, and now you're at the point where I think Dan has something up his sleeve. At least making the offense more fun. When you have the opportunity or possibility of having the greatest show on turf type of offense, you need to take full advantage of it. Quite frankly, I would have loved to sit here and go on the hiatus of having Zac Taylor work at a Myers nearby, but that's just not going to happen. So with that being said, giving up those and being more of a head coach, you want to sit there and talk about at press conferences. I believe every guy in this building is the answer. And I have full faith and confidence that we'll get back on track. Since you're talking about everybody, I want you to be accountable for everybody. Mm-hmm. Let certain people focus on certain jobs and you be the head coach. You being the offensive caller, your hands shaking on 4th and 3 when shit gets big, lights get bright, you're pissing down your leg. It ain't gonna work. That shit's getting old, and you're not. Your game when you should have sat there and had that thought, or somebody should have been calling for that, was the Patriots game when you ain't put up shit. Mm-hmm. That blew me to I can't even tell you right now, but that right there is when it was like that. That was my bottom line. Yeah. Change play calling, see if you can get a spark.
Okay. So I think that the only argument, because I don't think Zach is a terrible play caller personally.
I didn't say he's terrible.
No, I just think sometimes situational
and decision making.
And I think sometimes the game, I think he's so involved with the game as the head coach. Sometimes he has lapses in judgment there.
Both ways.
I agree with that. That all being said, if we're talking about New Year's resolution real quickly, I'm just going to go to the draft really quickly. And I'm going very prematurely here. While everybody flirts and gets excited over a safety from the Ohio State University and Caleb Downs, I'm not there personally. I like Caleb Downs, right? But there's another safety that's caught my eye in the draft. And you guys are going to hear me talk about this guy's name a lot in the coming months. His name is 𝗦𝗪𝗓𝗡 Ramsey from USC. He's a guy that I think has the ability to take the football away. I think he's exceptional in zone coverage. PFF grades him consistently as one of the higher safeties in the league. His coverage ability. This is a guy who's played slot corner. He can play slot corner if you need him to. He could play in the box. He's done so many things. But I really, really love the idea of 𝗦𝗪𝗓𝗡 Ramsey being the free safety, being the roamer around the defense, seeing as he has so much experience playing cornerback on the outside, lining up in the slot, lining up inside the box, and of course playing at free safety. And he has a little bit of punt return ability as well. But I want to get Logan's thoughts. So I don't know if you watched too much of 𝗦𝗪𝗓𝗡 Ramsey, safety from USC, but he's a guy to me that when I turn on the film, I love it. Listen, what the Bengals need more than anybody, they need a ball hawk. They need somebody who's going to take the ball away. And I love Caleb Downs, right? I think Caleb Downs is going to get drafted very high, and where the Bengals will be picking, the Bengals probably right now have the 10th overall pick. Is that a little too rich for you? Maybe not for me. I like Caleb Downs there, but I think for what they need personally, right? Yeah. They need to get interior defensive lineman. Let's say if there's not a guy that stands out in free agency, and you're not going to do that. They need to use that pick very, very wisely. And for me, I want to hear what Logan's thoughts are on this.
Yeah, I think in terms of 𝗦𝗪𝗓𝗡 and Caleb Downs, in general, this is honestly a pretty strong safety class. It's pretty strong safety free agency class as well. You don't want that to necessarily push a guy like Caleb Downs down your board a little bit, but when you're a team like the Bengals who have other glaring needs, it certainly does. If we can get Ramsey in round 2, round 3, whatever it is, that's going to probably return so much more value than Caleb Downs at 10 would. And that's a big part of the discussion always. That's not necessarily how the Bengals have approached it, which is maybe why we've been in the situation we're in. But Ramsey is just a really good safety. He does a lot of things really well. He's a ball hawk, like Malik said, and that's just kind of that missing piece they need. I love when safeties are very versatile and can do a number of things. He's got over 200 snaps in the slot roughly in each year of his career at USC. He just does a little bit of everything, and he excels in open space. He makes tackles. He's just a really solid athlete too. Like, he just does a lot of things well. I don't think he does anything at an extraordinarily well level, but he doesn't really do anything bad either. There's no glaring holes or flaws in his game. He's a guy that's going to return a lot of value in rounds 2, round 3. I mean, again, is he better prospect straight up than Caleb Downs? No, I don't think anybody really say that, but when you can get a tackle, a defensive tackle in round 1, and then still get a really, really good safety prospects in rounds 2 or 3, that's where the discussion comes to me.
He's a guy that excites me because I just think that when you turn on the film, there's so much of his game that I almost think he reminds me of a guy like Cameron Kitchens. He reminds me of what's the dude's name? Kevin Joseph, right? That came from Penn State. There's so much of his game to me that just even Xavier Watts last year, right? His ability to take the ball away. And that's, to me, that's what excited me the most about the potential of the Bengals drafting Xavier Watts. And obviously that didn't work out, but I really, really love, I really, really do love the idea of a 𝗦𝗪𝗓𝗡. Yes, Dan.
I was just gonna piggyback off of what you guys are saying. As far as Caleb Downs, am I like completely sold on him, and am I in love with the pick? Yes and no. I'm in the middle. Why? Because I think Caleb Downs honestly is just a pro. I think he's a pro. I think he does his job well. He's not the most athletic, but he's more than capable of being able to return punts. He's able to sit here and he can come down and cover the slot. He can sit here and cover. He's big enough to cover tight end.
He's versatile. To me,
he is.
He can be a free safety, but I feel like he's more of a strong.
He's a rover. In my eyes, he's a rover where he can sit here. He can come down and play. It's almost kind of like he's more athletic Jamal Adams in my eyes.
But you need a guy that can be the deep center fielder, the guy that could take the deep shots away. I don't know if and Marissa, correct me if I'm wrong. You know how I know you don't have to have a mic, but I don't know if I see that with his game. But then again, teams actively threw away from Caleb Downs.
And sometimes your production gets hit because you're not being targeted. Same thing with Deion Sanders. I mean, like, guys, he'll shut down the whole half of the field, and then he'll have to try to bait people into shit. Yeah. When that's where I'm at with Caleb Downs, is the fact that he sits here and he is so versatile that you can start to move him in places where, pre-snap, he's back playing deep third, and then he comes down into the box and he's splitting the B gap and getting a sack. Or you could sit here and have him drop and play the flats, and he could take one to the crib. You can throw him back there at punt return. You can sit here, and sometimes I think he's more athletic than what people give him. I'm gonna be honest. We talked about earlier with the flashiness. There's guys who just fill roles.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing for a long time. You pay guys to be one-dimensional. Well, hey, we brought him here and this is what he can do. No, with Caleb Downs, I can sit here and say that there's a professionalism about him, but also there's an ability to be a game changer when and given opportunities to be in those positions. I don't think he makes huge mistakes on missing a interception when he is tried one time late in the game. I think Caleb Downs is one of those guys where you might overthink it going into the draft, and we're early, so you might overthink and be like, well, I think there's a guy who has more splash and can create more turnovers, but is he consistent? And that's what we've been missing is consistency.
Yeah.
And
That's a very good point. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
no, and just to add to that, like we'll get into the draft content, obviously, but the way I look at this personally, the most ideal need, in my opinion, would be a 3-tech pass rusher. And especially at the top 10 of the draft, when you look at these guys that have had success, whether, you can look at Leonard Williams, you can look at so many guys in the NFL at the defense tackle spot that were drafted high. Yeah. I just don't know if that's the draft for this. And that's my opinion as of right now, because I think it's Peter Woods or bust, especially if you have a top 10 pick.
So you like Peter Woods?
No, not really.
Okay.
But if we're going top 10, you've got to draft a guy that you see star potential. And that's why, like, we'll throw out some of these names, but like cornerback is fantastic. Safety with Caleb Downs, like you are going to have your chance. And that's why I think it would be a very big mistake if the Bengals look at a guy like Peter Woods. And I know it's still early, but say, hey, just because we have a major need here, we're going to draft them versus these other guys. Like I said, the cornerback spot, even Sonny Styles is a guy who is fantastic. It's not the biggest need for the Bengals, but at a top 10 pick, you have to draft with the idea that this guy is going to be a future superstar and a future star for your team. So,
and you talk about there's 3 teams, honestly, the Raiders, the Jets, and the Washington Commanders, where it's like we need help on defensive side, where that's interior defensive linemen, corners, or you sit here and you talk about edge possibilities. The Bengals sitting at 10 is great, but I'm gonna say this. Cameras right here. We fucked ourselves winning those 2 games. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a fan of tanking. I ain't saying tank. I know you want to have some type of enthusiasm about the end of the year and what could possibly be and have that momentum going into next year. But we said this shit maybe like 3-4 shows ago, that the worst possibility would be that the Bengals sit here and they win out the rest of the games. And now you're sitting here at a teens pick. Luckily, you're at 10 right now. Now, how this weekend shakes out and we end up do we beat the Browns? I don't know.
Well,
I'm being honest. That's another conversation for another day.
What I'll say is I agree with you to that point, and maybe I'm just like being more of an optimist in this standpoint.
Okay.
I was expecting it to be, hey, you're in the 17 range. Yeah. The lowest you can get now is 12. So for me, I look at this like, hey, even if you win this week and you get to 12, you can't mess that up. If you are the Bengals, this is the highest
you can't shit the bed
since what? Drafting Jamar?
Yeah.
You can't mess this up. This is a borderline top 10 pick. And while we can debate all these prospects,
we're going to.
You can't mess up a top 10 pick. And
there's one guy. Hey. Listen, and Evan's probably going to disagree with me. I usually am very bullish on the whole drafting cornerback, super, top 10 guys. But if 𝗦𝗪𝗕𝗦𝗖𝗥𝗕𝗬𝗓 is sitting
the corners
there
are good here.
LSU.
Oh yeah.
That you might have to go back to the slot. That might have to be.
And look, I don't like that problem. Fuck it.
You're talking about listen, he was the 3rd highest rated safety, according to PFF. Third highest rated safety in college football. His coverage grade was a 90. That's a guy that excites me. Logan, I know we're talking prematurely, but tell me about 𝗦𝗪𝗕𝗦𝗖𝗥𝗕𝗦, because this is a guy you're talking about, a guy that has shut down potential.
Yeah,
man. Evan, I don't know how much you know about him either, but
I think in general, I think it's always very, I don't want to say cool of a prospect, but it just makes you feel good about them when they're out of school. He's at Virginia Tech, and you're like, damn, this is a really good football player. and then he goes to LSU, and you're like, holy shit, he's still a really good football player. And it just gives you so much more confidence about their ability to continue to trend upward and to continue to develop and to continue just to look the part no matter where they're at. And that's exactly what 𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗘 said. I mean, like you said, he talked about his coverage grade and everything. He's excelled in man. He's excelled in zone. He's played a little bit of slot. He's moved around a little bit.
Very good run defender.
Like he's just a really good player. And that's what you want at the cornerback position. This is a pretty solid cornerback class. And honestly, the Bengals have historically taken corner very, very, very early. And if you want to talk about the need for us, I'm not gonna say it's a super high need, but when you can really just shore up Dax, DJ Turner, 𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗘, a free agent safety, and Jordan Battle, that's immediately going to become one of the best secondaries in the league. And when your defensive line is as bad as it is, you want to make sure you damn sure have a good secondary, and that's what they can do. And then they can spend their money on the line or adjust more things on the line. 𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗘 is just a very good football player. We talk about drafting very good football players. He would be that. Maybe that's
he's the best cornerback in the draft, right?
Maybe I would probably say so. I mean, like AJ Terrell's little brother is really good as well.
He's been locking shit down for a second too.
Yeah, and he forces a ton of fumbles at corner, which is really fun as well. But just in general, like adding a corner again is historically something the Bengals like to do. The value is always there, and just having a good cornerback and a good secondary is extremely important in the National Football League, especially when you don't have the pass rush. You want to draft good football players. 𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗘 is a very good football player.
Or one question I've got for you guys on this draft topic real quick, because I see a lot of people discussing this, and we will get to this, but like the Ruben Bain conversation, I'm curious here. Are you guys staying away because they drafted Miles and Shamar Stewart?
Shamar specifically, I see too much Ruben Bain and Shamar Stewart.
I think that the Bengals drafted Shamar with the thought process that he's going to be an absolute alien on the field. When you see how they utilize him, and I want to get Evan's thoughts on this, but when you look at how they utilize him, he was moved to 3-tech several times this past week. He was rushing the pass from the inside. He was pushing the pocket. To me, I think they hope he could become Myles Garrett-esque, right? Wouldn't every team hope that they had a pass rush that was Myles Garrett-esque? But I think that they really – I really don't know if Shamar Stewart will have a set spot on the defensive line. I think their hope is to move him all along the defensive line. And so I guess the best question here is, with them doing that, does that take away the need of them needing to go out there? And even though we all believe they need to go out and add a dominant 3-tech,
right?
But maybe they need to go out there and maybe they feel like Shamar Stewart, I guess, is that pass rusher that they need him to be, where they can look at, okay, here's the strength of this team's offensive line. Let's rush Shamar from this spot. I don't know. That's kind of how I think that they view Shamar a little bit.
And that comes down to coaching.
Yeah,
it comes down to fucking coaching. Like I can't keep saying this shit enough. Like it be pissing me off because we at the point where it's like we have guys who, if they were to take just a half of a step forward, the production could jump, and you would then feel like, you know what, we could focus our worries elsewhere.
But
I'm not gonna lie,
slowing down for him though. It does seem like it's slowing down.
You know
for
what?
Shamar.
You know what? That's good. But here's the fucking problem. We don't have the luxury to let guys bump their heads. And that's a problem that the Bengals have had. Yes. And Ev, you brought up a good idea. Was to have some type of seniority brought into the building to play those positions and let guys have moments where they could jump in and learn in the water. You can't just throw a baby in there and expect them to be an Olympic swimmer off rip. No, you got to give them time. And you know what I'll say? And this might sound crazy. We were talking about what the fuck to do with Trey earlier. I don't even think it sounds crazy, but you talk about banking your buck, and I know the Bengals don't do this shit, but I would be thinking trade up in the draft, and what would I do? I would take that number 10 pick right now that we have, take that number 10 pick in Trey, put a fucking bow on top of it, and send that bitch to one of them top 6 teams and try to get 𝗪𝗡𝗡𝗪. Now, I know that shit ain't going to happen because we don't like to do nothing.
Doesn't even get you in the conversation. Sorry, that's just
not. Look, bro, I'm trying to finesse somebody here. Like,
good luck. The Bengals have never finessed anybody,
and that's the problem. We ain't got no slick talkers.
You'll be stuck with a high cap hit on Trey, right? I mean, that's just the reality.
That's the thing. He ain't even under contract. You can't trade him. He's not under contract.
Well, he's saying franchise tag him. That's what he was saying.
No.
Yes, you did. You said. You would have to.
If we say he's worth a first-round pick, you don't get from 10 to 5.
No, fuck
picks.
That. No, when did I say that?
How else would you trade Trey?
He's free.
He's not under contract.
He's a free agent.
You can't trade a free agent.
So how
Oh shit! Fuck me.
You have to.
Oh man.
Jack.
Well, I guess we. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that neither. Never mind. Fuck that. I'm not. No.
But,
I'd rather just lose him than
that's-
sit there and sign
yeah,
him to
yeah,
some more
no,
money and then
that's-
try to trade him.
Look,
Fuck that.
when it
I'm
comes-
sorry. Let me shut the fuck up.
When it comes to the draft, I got two thoughts. The first
My bad,
is
Lee.
it doesn't fucking matter right now because we have off-field shit. We got combine. We got everything. How many people thought Jerjon Newton was falling out of top 10 last draft, right? Like
Right.
everybody, we think, yeah, you're in the top 10 right now. There's guys in the 15s and 20s that are going to drop into that. It's all going to fucking move,
Yeah.
right? So like, far be it from us to say anybody is or isn't going to be there because we don't know what the fuck's going on right
Well,
now.
I'm just simply
So
bringing it
I
up 'cause
understand.
think it's good to
I
discuss
understand.
that.
I'm just saying
That's part of what
that
we
is
do.
my opinion right now. Like, yeah, we can talk about, oh, this guy would be perfect. We don't fucking know. We won't know for next month and a half, 2 months, as all these guys are starting
Yeah,
to do this
3.
conversation. The NFL scouting guys are done with the playoffs.
Fact.
All that starts coming to us, right? Like, yeah, we can stack that board, but right now, if you look at college football playoff hasn't even finished yet, big board compared to the NFL draft day before big board,
Mhm.
completely different. Like
All
there's
that
names,
shit's gonna
half
shake.
the names in the first round aren't still there. Like that's the point I mean to make right now. So as much as like we want to figure it out now, we got a lot more to figure out. That's my first point. My second point is I'm going to practice what I preach all the time and say, hey, there's a lot of guys in the draft, and I have not gotten to my draft work yet. So it's okay for me to not have an opinion on a player. Keyshawn Johnson, if you don't know who the fuck a guy is and what position he plays, then just shut your fucking mouth or just say, hey, haven't gotten to him. But you know who I do love? It's that easy. It's that easy to say, you know what? I don't know everything, and that's okay because I have wonderful co-hosts that can help fill in for my gaps. In
Mic
knowledge.
drop, bitch.
And so what I'll say is the counterpoint that I love the draft. So
I do too.
I like to pay attention throughout the season, and not only on top of that, I look forward to it because this is the part where I start to do a lot of breakdowns, and I know a lot of people look to this channel for, okay, who might the Bengals might be in, who might make sense for the Bengals. And as I started, before I even brought up the draft stuff, I said my New Year's resolution: here are some players that I personally like in the draft. Now we're going to get to that where we'll all have our take. And you're allowed to dream. You're allowed to be excited about potential players that the Bengals might draft. Because guess what? Unfortunately, we're not talking playoffs. Unfortunately, we're not talking about what the Bengals could do. So one thing that we do have to look forward to is the NFL draft. But before we get there, like Evan said, we have free agency to look forward to. We have so many questions that need answers. We need to know who's going to be the fall guy for this season, right? Because somebody has to answer for this fuck up of a season. But as we say always, like we'll have you guys covered for that on the channel. I'm still going to talk about some of these players, but you need to make Dalton Risner free agent priority. That's a guy needs to be back. DJ Turner needs to be signed, extended. Dax Hill needs to be excited.
Yes, Queen.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Yes.
And so, outside of that, I think that you need to have some tough conversations of some players you might need to move off of. And we're going to get to all that. But before we do any of that, I wanted to say it's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously doing State of the Jungle each of the last 3 years with you guys. And obviously this year was an awesome year as well. It didn't go the way we wanted it to. You have to, Evan. You have to.
That was him.
It didn't.
That was him.
It
He
didn't.
did that.
Who am I looking at this for?
No, not
Is it
me. That's Daniel.
Daniel got
That's
the
Daniel.
peach white
Don't
wine
blame
with
me. Why you
natural
blaming me?
flavors.
It's because it's girl here. I ain't gonna lie. That's some bullshit.
It's April's fault. It's April's fault. No, but honestly, this has been an awesome year for us. Just obviously me and the boys. It's crazy to think we've been doing this show now for 4 years. It's kind of crazy to think. And
Y'all.
I honestly would have thought we would have had a Super Bowl trophy by now, but
Would have been nice.
we're here, right? So listen, State of the Jungle has been a blast. We've got one more show before we go on a little bit of our break before the off season next week. Boys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Nobody else I'd be rather doing this with.
Hey man, appreciate
Like we did
you,
last
man.
year's show, right? And I think we did the beginning of this year. We're gonna bring this show to a close with a little bit of a New Year's toast. So I think we all got our little glasses, right? Here's to the Cincinnati Bengals, hopefully figuring shit the fuck out.
This is my second one.
This is to the Cincinnati Bengals, hopefully being aggressive in free agency.
Mm.
Here's to the Cincinnati Bengals, hopefully extending their players they need to extend and not waiting until the final year and then nickel and diming players. Here's to the Bengals making the right decisions this
Yeah, I gotta
offseason,
do it.
especially when it comes to management. And last but not least,
one more.
here's to the Bengals hopefully finally bringing a Super Bowl to the city of Cincinnati, because I could not think of a city that deserves it even more. And guess what? The Super Bowl is played in LA next year. The last time the Super Bowl was in LA, the Bengals were in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it's going to happen. So to that, everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in each and every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. and making us a part of your regular routine. And until next time, 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗓.